The doctor said she was too weak. The cowboy nursed her back and said, "You're a fighter." The doctor said she was too weak. The cowboy nursed her back and said, "You're a fighter." The monitors were screaming before anyone had time to think. Nurse Donna Calloway grabbed the crash cart from the hallway and shoved it through the door with her shoulder, her sneakers squeaking hard against the tile. The woman on the bed, pale, motionless, barely 40 pounds over the frame of her own bones, had flatlined for the second time in 6 hours. Dr. Philip Hartman was already at the bedside, but his hands were slow, deliberate. The kind of slow that told every person in that room he had already made a decision. "Call it," he said. Donna's head snapped up. "She's got a rhythm, look at the screen." "A rhythm that will fail again in 20 minutes. He pulled off his gloves. "Her organs are shutting down in sequence. Her body is done fighting. We can keep pushing, but we'd only be extending the process, not reversing it." The woman on the bed was named Claire Dunn. She was 34 years old. She had been found 3 days earlier at the edge of a dirt road in a small Texas county, unconscious, dehydrated to the point of organ damage, her lips cracked and bleeding, her core temperature so low the paramedics thought the thermometer was broken. She had no identification. No phone, no one who had come to claim her. What she had was a faint pulse and a name written in pen on the inside of her wrist, the way a child writes a number in case they get lost. The name said, Lou. Nobody knew what that meant yet. Doctor. Hartman spoke again, and his voice was not unkind. It was simply empty of hope. "She has no family on record, no insurance, no medical history we can access. Her kidneys are at 30%. Her liver enzymes are off the chart. She aspirated fluid twice. Even if we pulled her back again, she would need round-the-clock care for months in a facility that does not exist in this county." He looked at the monitor one more time. "Document this as a medical determination. She is too weak to survive further intervention." Donna did not write anything down. She stood there with the pen in her hand, and she looked at Claire Dunn, the shallow rise of her chest, the faint crease between her brows, like even in unconsciousness she was concentrating on something, and Donna did not write a single word. "I need you to document it, Nurse Calloway." "Give me a minute," she said. She did not mean with the paperwork. She stepped into the hallway. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The hospital was the only one within 60 miles, a small regional facility that handled everything from broken arms to cardiac events, understaffed and underfunded and doing its best. Donna had worked there for 11 years. She had seen people pulled back from the edge, and she had seen people slip past it quietly. She knew the difference. She had learned to trust the numbers. The numbers said Claire Dunn was dying. Donna's gut said something else. She pulled out her personal cell phone, which she was not supposed to use on shift, and she called a number she had not dialed in almost 2 years. It rang 4 times. Then a voice came through, rough and unhurried, the kind of voice that belonged to a man who spent most of his time outdoors. "Calloway, what happened?" It was not a question. Lou Garner always answered the phone like he already knew it was bad news. "There's a woman here," Donna said, keeping her voice low. "They found her off County Road 12. She had your name on her wrist." A long pause, then, "Is she alive?" "Barely. The doctor wants to stop treatment. Lou, she's bad, but she's still here." Another pause. "Longer this time? I'm 40 minutes out. Visiting hours are, I'll be there in 40 minutes. The line went dead. Donna walked back into the room. Dr. Hartman was still there, making notes on his tablet. She set her pen down on the counter beside the monitors. "I need more time before I document anything," she said. He looked at her with the measured patience of a man who had argued this before. "Donna, someone is coming. 40 minutes. Let me have 40 minutes. He left. He did not agree, but he left, which was close enough. Donna pulled a chair to the bedside and sat down. She looked at Claire Dunn's hand, at the name written in fading blue ink on the inside of her wrist. The letters were small and careful. The handwriting belonged to someone who had written it in a hurry, but had tried to make it legible anyway. Like she had known, she might not be able to speak for herself, and had prepared for it ahead of time. Donna thought that took a particular kind of courage. She reached out and covered Claire's hand with her own. "You've got somebody coming," she said quietly. "You just have to wait a little longer." Outside, the Texas night was flat and dark and enormous. 40 miles away, a truck was already moving fast down an empty road, its headlights cutting through the dark like the driver had somewhere to be and nothing was going to stop him. Lou Garner had not slept in 36 hours. He had been working a fence line on the far end of his property when his radio picked up a signal, a fragment of a county dispatch call, just enough to put a cold feeling in his chest that he could not shake. He had gone back to the house, checked his phone. Nothing. He told himself it was nothing. Then Donna called. He drove with one hand on the wheel and the other pressed flat against his thigh, a habit from years ago that he had never broken. The road was empty. The stars over Texas were thick and low, the kind of sky that made a man feel both very small and very clear-headed at once. He had not seen Claire Dunn in 14 months. He had not spoken to her in 9. The last time they talked, she had told him she was fine. Her voice had the particular tightness of a person saying the opposite of the truth, and he had let her say it, because she was 34 years old and had the right to her own choices, even the bad ones. He had given her his number. He had told her to call if she ever needed anything, anything at all, day or night, no questions. She had written his name on her wrist instead of calling. He pressed harder on the accelerator. The hospital parking lot was half empty. He walked through the sliding doors with his hat in his hand, dried mud on his boots, and a look on his face that made the night desk clerk give him directions without being asked. Room 14. He pushed the door open slowly. The room was dim and full of soft beeping. Claire lay still against the white pillows, so thin it hurt to look at her directly, the way it hurts to look at something broken that used to be whole. Tubes ran from her arms. A machine breathed with her, slow and steady. Donna Calloway stood up from the chair beside the bed. She looked at Lou. She looked at the woman on the bed. She did not say a word. Lou Garner walked to the bedside. He stood there for a long moment, his hat held against his chest with both hands, his jaw tight. Then he pulled the chair closer and sat down. He reached out and covered Claire's hand with his. "I'm here," he said, low, just for her. The monitor beeped, slow and steady. "I'm here." Donna found Dr. Hartman at the nurse's station 20 minutes later. "The man in room 14, she said, wants to talk to you about transfer of care." Hartman looked up. "There's nothing to transfer. The prognosis hasn't changed. He owns 60 acres and a house 12 minutes from here. He says he has done long-term animal recovery for 15 years and he wants to know what it would take to care for her outside this facility." Hartman stared at her. "She is not livestock, Calloway. He knows that." Donna set a form on the counter. "He's asking for the medical requirements, everything you'd need in place for a viable home care situation. He says he'll get whatever it takes. She needs monitoring equipment and Roman 4 setup, someone with medical training on site at all times or close enough to matter. She needs labs every 72 hours minimum, and she needs someone who understands that she may not make it regardless of any of that. He understands that, does he?" Donna thought about the way Lou Garner had walked into that room. The particular set of a man's shoulders when he has already done his grieving in the truck and arrived ready to work. "Yes," she said, "he does." Hartman was quiet for a moment. He picked up the form. He read it slowly. "I need to speak with him directly," he said. "Room 14. She watched him walk down the hall. She watched the door to room 14 open and then close. She sat down at the nurse's station and let out a breath she had been holding since the monitors started screaming. The night shift continued around her. Call lights blinked. Somewhere down the hall a patient asked for water. The hospital breathed its slow, institutional breath. 40 minutes later, Hartman came back. He sat down across from Donna. He looked like a man who had recalculated something. "He is not what I expected," Hartman said. "No," Donna agreed. "He never is. She has a 15% chance, in my professional opinion, of surviving the next 30 days regardless of location or care level." He paused. "But her chances at home, in a calm environment with consistent attention and no hospital-acquired infections, are marginally better than here. Marginally. Marginally is something. It is barely something." "It is not nothing," Donna said. Hartman picked up his pen. He began writing the discharge paperwork. Outside the window, the sky over Texas had begun to go gray at the edge, the first thin line of morning pushing up behind the flat horizon. Lou Garner was still in room 14, still in the chair, still holding Claire Dunn's hand. He had not moved. Donna checked on them once just to make sure. She stood in the doorway for a moment. She did not go in. Lou was talking. Low and steady, the way a man talks to something hurt and frightened, not trying to convince it of anything, not making promises. Just letting it know it was not alone in the dark. Claire's eyelids moved, the faintest flutter, not enough to be waking, but enough to be something. Donna walked back to the station. Some things do not need a witness. They only need room to happen. And sometimes 15% is everything. Lou Garner's truck had a bench seat and a heater that worked on the passenger side but not the driver's side, which had never bothered him before and bothered him considerably now. He had borrowed a proper medical transport cot from the county clinic, had zip-tied it into the bed of the truck with 4 anchor points and a canvas windbreak, and had driven 14 miles back to the hospital at 30 miles per hour to make sure the ride would be smooth. Enough. Donna Calloway had watched him rig it up in the parking lot that morning and had said very quietly, "You've done this before." "Not with a person," he said. "Same principle." "Close enough," he agreed. The discharge took 4 hours. Paperwork, equipment instructions, a long conversation with a home health nurse named Pat who drove out from the county seat twice a week, and who gave Lou her personal number and told him to call if anything changed at any hour. Dr. Hartman went over the medications twice. He went over the warning signs twice. He handed Lou a printed sheet and said, "This is not a guarantee of anything." "I know," Lou said. "She may not wake up in any meaningful way." "I know. You understand the level of care this requires. This is not." "Doc," Lou folded the paper and put it in his chest pocket. "I've been ranching for 20 years. I have sat with animals through the night in January when it was cold enough to crack wood. I have nursed things back that the vet had written off. I am not under any illusions about what this is." He looked at Hartman straight. "And I am not doing this because I think it will definitely work. I'm doing it because she had my name on her wrist, and that means something." Hartman was quiet. Then he held out his hand. Lou shook it. The drive home was slow and deliberate. Lou kept his eyes on the road and his mind on the equipment in the truck bed. Every bump he navigated around. Every turn he took wide and gentle. The Texas morning was clear and cold, the fields on either side of the road yellow-brown and still, a few cattle moving slow in the distance. The house was a simple one, 2 bedrooms, a wide porch, a kitchen that got good morning light. Lou had set up the downstairs bedroom the night before, clean sheets, the medical equipment arranged on a folding table against the wall, a chair pulled close to the bed, a window cracked an inch because Claire had always, as far as he remembered, preferred fresh air. He carried her inside himself. She weighed almost nothing. That was the part that hit him in the chest, not as a thought, but as a physical fact. The weight of her or the absence of it. He had known her when she was strong and capable and sharp-tongued and too proud to ask for help, and what he was carrying now was the result of a long time of not asking. He set her down carefully. He adjusted the pillow. He checked the Roman 4 line. He pulled the blanket up to her chin. Then he sat in the chair. The house was very quiet. Outside, one of the horses moved in the paddock. The wind came through the cracked window and stirred the curtain. The monitor beeped, slow and regular, like a small, stubborn clock. Lou Garner was not a man who talked much. He had grown up in a family where silence was a form of respect, where you did not fill a room with words just because the room was empty. But that first morning, sitting in the chair beside Claire Dunn's bed, he talked. Not about anything important. Not about the past or the 14 months or the 9 months of silence or any of the things that had weight between them. He talked about the horses. He talked about the fence line he had been repairing. He talked about a bird that had been nesting in the barn rafters and the way it scolded him every time he walked underneath. He talked about the weather and what the forecast said and how he did not trust the forecast but checked it anyway. He talked because the sound of a human voice, according to Pat the home health nurse, could reach places that machines could not. He talked because it was the only thing he had to give her right now. At noon, Pat arrived. She checked the Roman 4, drew labs, changed the dressing on Claire's arm where the hospital had left a bruise. She moved efficiently and gently. She showed Lou how to reposition Claire every 2 hours to prevent pressure sores. She showed him how to read the monitor for anything that needed a phone call. "You're a fast learner," she said. "Had good teachers," he said. After Pat left, the afternoon stretched long and quiet. Lou did the chores that needed doing, fed the horses, checked the water troughs, split some wood. And every hour he came back inside and repositioned Claire and checked the monitor and talked for a few minutes about whatever was in front of him. Day 2 was the same as day 1. Day 3, her fever spiked. Lou called Pat at 2 in the morning. Pat talked him through it, clear and calm, step by step. They brought it down by 4. When the fever broke, Claire made a sound, small and involuntary, the sound of a body releasing something it had been holding too hard. Lou sat back in his chair and pressed his hand over his face for a moment. Just a moment. Then he straightened up and checked the monitor and talked about the bird in the barn. Day 5, her labs came back better than anyone had expected. Pat held the results up in the morning light and said, "This is real." "Yeah," Lou said. "Her kidneys are responding." "Yeah." Pat looked at him across the kitchen table. She had been a home health nurse for 19 years, and she had seen caregivers wear down in every possible way, had seen them go hollow with exhaustion or brittle with false optimism. Lou Garner was neither. He was just present. Steady, like a fence post sunk deep enough that weather couldn't move it. "You should sleep more than 4 hours," she said. "I sleep fine," he said. She did not believe him, but she let it go. Day 7. Lou was in the kitchen making coffee when he heard it. A sound from the bedroom. Not the monitor, not the equipment, a different sound. He walked to the doorway. Claire Dunn's eyes were open, not all the way, not clear, but open. Looking at the ceiling with the slow, unfocused look of someone trying to remember where they are and how they got there. Her lips moved. No sound came out, but they moved. Lou walked to the chair, sat down, leaned forward. "You're at my place," he said. His voice came out rougher than he intended. "You're safe, don't try to talk yet." Her eyes moved, found his face, they stayed there. Lou reached out and covered her hand with his, the same way he had in the hospital room a week ago, in the dark, with the monitors screaming and a doctor already writing her off. "You had my name on your wrist," he said. "So I came." Her fingers, impossibly thin and cold, moved against his palm. Not a squeeze, barely a shift, but deliberate. Lou Garner, who had not cried in more years than he could count, looked at the window and breathed through his nose until the feeling passed. Then he looked back at her. "You're doing good," he said. "Just keep going." The second week was harder than the first. When Claire was unconscious, the work was clear. Monitor, reposition, medicate, repeat. Lou could measure progress by numbers on a screen, could point to a lab result and say this is better than yesterday. The body, when it is fighting quietly, is something a person can tend to like land. You give it what it needs and you get out of the way. But Claire Dunn, as it turned out, was not someone who fought quietly. She woke in pieces over the following days, an hour of clarity, then sleep, then 3 hours, then sleep again. Each time she surfaced, she was more present than the time before, her eyes less clouded, her expression less lost. But with consciousness came pain she had not been able to feel before, and with pain came a particular kind of restlessness that the medications could only partially address. She did not cry. Lou noticed that early. Most people coming back from the edge of something that's serious had a period of tears, involuntary, physical, the body releasing pressure it had built up. Claire did not cry. What she did instead was get angry. The 4th morning she was fully awake, she tried to pull out her Roman 4 line. Lou caught her hand before she got it. "I've got somewhere to be," she said. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the tone was intact, sharp and certain. "You don't," Lou said. "You don't know my schedule. I know you can't stand up yet." She looked at him with the particular fury of someone who knows they are correct about the wrong thing. Then she let her hand drop back to the bed. She looked at the ceiling. Her jaw was tight. "How long have I been here?" 11 days. A pause. "What happened to me? What do you remember?" She did not answer right away. Her eyes moved across the ceiling the way eyes move when a person is sorting through something that is not fully sorted yet. "I remember the road," she said. "I remember thinking I just needed to sit down for a minute. You sat down for 11 days. Something moved across her face, not quite humor. The place where humor lives in a person when the rest of them is too tired to get there yet. "Who found me?" she said. "County paramedics, somebody driving past called it in. And they brought me here. The hospital first, then here." "Why here?" Lou was quiet for a moment. Then, "You had my name on your wrist." Claire turned her head and looked at him directly for the first time since she had woken up. The morning light came through the window and hit the side of her face. She looked like a person who had been through a very long fight and had not yet been told whether she won or lost. "I didn't have my phone," she said. "I know. I wasn't sure anyone else would know who to call." "I know." Another long silence. Outside, one of the horses made a sound in the paddock, and somewhere in the barn, the bird Lou had been talking about for 11 nights launched itself off a rafter and went somewhere with a great deal of wing noise. Claire watched the curtain move in the wind. You've been here the whole time, she said. It was not quite a question. Pat covers when I have to be outside. Who's Pat? Home health nurse. She likes you, says you have good veins. Claire made a sound that was almost a laugh and then stopped because laughing hurt. She pressed her hand flat against her ribs. Take a slow breath, Lou said. She did. Again, she did. The tension in her face eased by a fraction. Lou had learned in the past 11 days that Claire Dunn's body held its pain in her shoulders and her jaw. When something hurt, those were the places that showed it first. He did not say this to her. He filed it away the way he filed everything away, quietly and without comment, because some knowledge is not meant to be spoken out loud. Pat arrived at 10 o'clock and went bright when she saw Claire sitting up against the pillow. Look at you, she said. Don't, Claire said. I'm looking. It's embarrassing. It is absolutely not embarrassing. Pat set down her bag and started her checks with the practiced ease of someone who had been doing this for 19 years. Do you know what your numbers looked like 12 days ago? I can guess. Your kidneys were running at 30%. Your liver was... Pat, Lou said from the doorway. Pat glanced at him. He gave a small, slight shake of his head. Not now. Pat understood immediately. She finished her checks and talked about easy things, the weather, the horses she had seen in the paddock, a good recipe she had tried. She did not talk about how close it had been because Claire did not need the weight of it yet. She needed to get strong enough to carry it first. After Pat left, Claire slept again, 3 hours deeply without the restlessness of the earlier days. Lou did the afternoon chores. He came back in and found her awake, looking out the window at the paddock where the horses were moving in the late afternoon light. What are their names? She said without turning. The bay is called Decker. The gray is called Noon. Noon is a strange name for a horse. He was born at noon in July. It was 104 degrees, seemed to fit. Did you name Decker too? No, he came with it. She watched the horses for a while. Lou. Yeah, the doctor at the hospital. She paused. He didn't think I was going to make it. Lou was quiet. Donna told me, Claire said. When she called to check on me, she said he had documented that I was too weak to survive further intervention. That was his determination at the time. Was he wrong? Lou thought about this seriously, the way he thought about most things, not trying to arrive at the comfortable answer, but the true one. He wasn't wrong based on what he knew, Lou said. He was working with numbers. The numbers said what they said. But numbers don't know everything. Claire turned her head and looked at him. She had the look of someone who had been told her whole life that she was not enough, not strong enough, not well enough, not worth the effort, and who had begun, somewhere in the long quiet of the past 11 days, to suspect that was not the whole truth. Pat says another 2 weeks before I can try walking, she said. Pat's conservative, probably 10 days. I'm going to hold you to that. I know you are. The sun dropped behind the tree line. The paddock went gold and then gray. The horses settled. Lou made something simple for dinner and brought a bowl of broth in for Claire, and she drank it without complaint, which Pat had told him was a significant marker of recovery. That night, for the first time in 12 days, Lou slept more than 4 hours. 3 weeks after Claire Dunn had been loaded into the back of Lou Garner's truck, she stood up by herself. Pat was there when it happened. She had come for the morning labs and was sorting her kit at the folding table when she heard the creak of the bed frame and turned around and found Claire already standing. One hand on the headboard, her feet flat on the floor, her face arranged in the expression of someone who is concentrating very hard on not falling. Claire, Pat said. Don't come over, Claire said. I need to do this. Pat looked at Lou in the doorway. Lou crossed his arms. He stayed where he was. Claire let go of the headboard. She stood on her own for 4 seconds. Then her knees went soft and she sat back down on the edge of the bed, breathing hard. Pat looked at her notes. She wrote something down. She did not say anything. Claire looked at the floor. Her hands were in her lap. She was breathing through the effort of it, slow and deliberate, and there was something in her face that was not defeat and not triumph, something in between, something that recognized itself. 4 seconds, Lou said from the doorway. That's nothing, Claire said. Yesterday it was 0, she looked up at him. Tomorrow it'll be 8, he said. Pat packed her kit and said she would be back Thursday. She paused at the door on her way out and looked at Claire Dunn sitting on the edge of the bed with her hands in her lap and her jaw set and her eyes bright. You know, Pat said, in 19 years of home health, I can count on one hand the recoveries that moved this fast. Claire did not respond. I'm not saying it to be nice, Pat said. I'm saying it because it's true, she left. Claire and Lou sat in the quiet of the house for a moment. The morning light came through the window, and the bird in the barn launched itself off its rafter, and the horses moved in the paddock. She means it, Lou said. I know, Claire said. Do you believe it? A long pause. Outside, the wind moved through the yellow grass, and the sky was the flat, bright blue of a Texas morning that had decided to be clear. I'm working on it, Claire said. Lou nodded. That was the right answer. That was the only honest answer. He had learned in 3 weeks of sitting in that chair that Claire Dunn was not someone who said things she did not mean, and that meant the things she said were worth waiting for. On the 7th day after she first stood, she walked to the window. 12 steps. Both hands free. She stood at the window and looked out at the paddock and the horses and the long, flat reach of land that went all the way to the horizon. Her reflection in the glass was thin and her hair was loose, and she looked like someone standing at the start of something rather than the end. Lou came and stood beside her. He did not say anything about the distance she had come or the numbers that had been written against her, or the doctor who had made his determination in good faith and been, in this one case, wrong. He did not talk about 14 months or 9 months of silence or the name written in ink on her wrist. All of that would come in its own time, in its own conversation. Some things need to be strong enough to carry before you pick them up. He said, Noon likes apples. Decker won't eat them. If you give Decker an apple, he will hold it in his mouth for a polite amount of time and then drop it on your shoe. Claire made a sound that was a real laugh this time, surprised out of her before she could decide not to. I'll keep that in mind, she said. When you're ready, I'll take you out to meet them. She looked at the horses. Noon raised his head as if he had heard this and found it acceptable. Few more days, she said. Few more days, he agreed. 3 days later, she walked to the paddock fence without holding on to anything and held her hand out over the rail and let Noon come to her at his own pace, which was slow and steady and unhurried. And when his nose touched her palm, she did not flinch. That was the day Pat filed her formal recovery report. She marked Claire Dunn's prognosis as improved with strong continued trajectory, a phrase that in medical language is deeply conservative and in actual human experience means, she made it. She made it. Lou drove Pat out to her car that afternoon and Pat said, one hand on the door, What do you think she does now? Lou looked back at the house. Claire was on the porch, sitting in the wooden chair he had put out there for her, her face turned up toward the afternoon sun. Whatever she wants, he said. And you? He looked at the house a moment longer. Whatever she needs, he said. Pat smiled and got in her car and drove down the long dirt road toward the county highway. Lou watched her go. Then he walked back to the house and up the porch steps and sat in the chair beside Claire. The two of them sat in the late afternoon light without saying anything, which is the particular kind of quiet that only exists between people who have been through something together and come out the other side. After a while, Claire said, I owe you. No, Lou said. Lou. You don't owe me anything. You had my name on your wrist. That's all that happened. She was quiet for a moment. I'm going to argue with you about that later, she said. I know. When I have more energy, I'll be here. The sun went down behind the tree line and the horses settled, and the bird in the barn made its last sound of the day, and the sky over Texas went every color it knew before it finally decided to be dark. Claire Dunn was alive. She was on a porch in a wooden chair with the night coming in soft around her, and the man beside her was not going anywhere, and she was alive. The doctor had said she was too weak. Lou Garner had pulled his chair close and stayed. And now, on a quiet evening 3 weeks past the night the monitors had screamed, and a pen had been moving toward a determination, Claire turned to him and said the thing she had been building toward for 23 days without knowing it. You're the reason I kept going, she said. You know that? Lou looked at her. No, he said. I gave you a place to do it. The going was yours. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at the dark field and the stars coming out above the flat horizon, one at a time, the way they always do, unhurried and certain. You're a fighter, he said, low and plain, not a comfort, not a performance. Just a true thing said out loud by someone who had been watching long enough to know. Claire Dunn breathed in the cool night air. She did not argue, she let it be true.